Our last week's lecture was about editing techniques and montage. This graph is about the history of the average shot length. The horizontal x is about the year in that the movie was produced. Each dot is a movie. And the vertical x is the shot length. So you see that in the last 100 years, movies are becoming faster and faster in terms of their cutting rates. So what you see is like specifically in the 20 or the first maybe 20, 30 years, it's rapidly getting faster. And then specifically Hollywood movies, you see just the average shot lengths are like here. So the movie that we watched last week, Hot Fuzz, is I think here, 2007, the average shot length is 2.4, so it's less than 3 seconds. And you see just in these contemporary films the last 10, 20 years how the shot lengths were becoming shorter and films are becoming faster and faster at this point. If I put what we studied last week, the Soviet montage, so all the white ones are Soviet films. So you see that they are faster than the average shot lengths of other movies, like made in other parts of the world in the 1920s and 30s that we were discussing last week. So you see that the Soviet filmmakers were faster in comparison with the movies made in those years. So what is interesting here when I talk about this, the line that, that the movies are the shot lengths are becoming shorter and shorter. There is one place that you see the reversal of that trend. It's here. So when you see 1929, all of a sudden you see this step, and the shots are becoming longer and longer. Maybe average shot length all of a sudden is increased and becomes double of what was the average shot length before that. So what is happening? And this is the topic of our kind of lecture today. The sound. Sound was introduced in 1929. And you see that it has a huge impact on film style. Just the impact that it has on editing and shot length is significant. And if I put German instead, you see that this thing happens a year after because sound in Europe was introduced a little later than Hollywood. So why? Why all of a sudden movies are becoming longer, the average shot lengths? And there are other things. There are more static shots, less camera movements, and so on. So why this technological change has that kind of great impacts on film style? So first of all, the recording parts of the cameras, making the cameras heavier, so it's more difficult to move them. Also, the capturing the sound. Just imagine early on, it was not as easy to capture the sound in a very clear kind of way and with kind of clear depth. So little movements would change the depth and the clarity of the sound. And also they didn't want to, like you see sometimes on top of the frame, you see that's the sound recording microphones, and they didn't want to reveal all those wires and microphones. So they were trying not to move the camera. Also, editing was difficult. Sound editing was difficult for them. So they tried to avoid cuts and camera movements. The transition to sound also had an impact on the star system in acting. During the silent era, you would normally see actors crying because there was a need for exaggerated performances, pantomime-like acting, very expressive. More realistic acting became the norm after the transition to sound. You rarely would see actors, specifically male actors, crying on the set. So there was a huge change in the star system in Hollywood. So at that time, when this happened, a number of filmmakers were against it. René Clair, French filmmakers at that time, after the birth of sound film said the death of cinema, and said that because as an art form that is very expressive and something very different than literary arts and theater, now it's going to that direction. It's going to the direction of realism, just reproducing reality rather than being expressive. Just an example of acting it would suggest that. And the reason that it was invented, many film historians saying that it was not really any some sort of really a technological advancement, because they said that probably the technology was there, the science behind it from the very beginning. So in the 1929, it was just a change in movie going. It was basically it was introduced for commercial reasons, because people wanted to see vaudeville stuff everywhere in the country for a couple of dimes. It was becoming a more some sort of a working class sort of types of entertainment cinema. And so that's true. And the first movie is Jazz Singer. So they're just looking at this sort of music. So this is why people like René Clair, Charlie Chaplin, Sergei Eisenstein that we discussed last week were against that sort of transition to sound. Eisenstein wrote a manifesto to avoid realism, said that actually sound should be used only in this way. Ways like his manifesto, and actually he was interested in Disney films, the cartoonish way of using the sound. For instance, pouring like Mickey Mouse effect, pouring a glass of water and you see this sort of sound, brrr, something like that, something that is very superficial and cartoonish. And he said that actually sound was just should add to that sort of expressiveness of the movie, and should not be used realistic, just like dialogues only. So today's sound films, sound is an integral part of moving images. Specifically with the success of action movies and 3D animation, kind of each year you see that sound and music are playing a larger role in telling the stories. Hollywood movies are actually investing in the studios. We're investing in sound techniques. Very much, and just there's a reason they want people to come to movie theater. With all other sorts of entertainment or other ways of watching movies at home with Netflix and the internet and iTunes and everything, so to attract people to the movie theater, there should be something that you can only experience in a movie theater. And sound, like imagine a movie that came last year, 1917. This is something like you watch that in a movie theater, and one important reason is the sound quality of the film. So for that reason, there are actually two awards for sound editing and sound mixing when for Academy Awards. So that's actually it shows that they kind of it's a very very important thing for film industry, American film industry at this point. So, when I talked about the problems and changes in film style, shorter cuts and performances and these things, so I'm going to show you a clip from Singing in the Rain. And it was made in 1957, and it's about the problems that studios had like it's a historic films. It was made in the 57, was about the transition to sound in 1929. And maybe one reason is that they were at that time TV was threatening film industries, and they wanted to make a movie about previous crisis that they had, saying that if we survived that, we're surviving now.
All right, here we go. Quiet. Roll up.
She's got to talk into the mic. I can't pick it up.
Cut. What's the matter, Dexter?
Lena, look, Lena, don't you remember I told you there's a microphone right there in the bush?
Yeah,
You have to talk into it.
I was talking, wasn't I, Miss Dinsmore?
Yes, my dear, but please remember round tones. Pierre, you shouldn't have come.
Pierre, you shouldn't have come.
Yes, my dear, that's much better now.
Hold it a second. Now, Lena, look. Here's the mic. Right here in the bush.
Yeah.
Now you talk towards it. The sound goes through the cable to the box. A man records it on a big record in wax. But you have to talk into the mic first. In the bush. Now try it again.
Gee, this is dumb.
Oh, she'll get it, Dexter. Look, Lena, don't worry. We're all a little nervous the first day. Everything's going to be okay. Oh, by the way, Roscoe, you know the scene coming up where I say, Imperious Princess of the Night? I don't like those lines there. Is it all right if I just say what I always do? I love you, I love you, I love you.
Sure. Anyway, it's comfortable. But into the bush! Okay, again. Quiet! Roll 'em!
Shouldn't have flirting with David. They will surely find you out.
Cut! Lena, we're missing every other word. You've got to talk into the mic.
Well, I can't make love to a bush.
All right. We'll have to think.
What are you doing?
You're being wired for sound, dearie.
What?
Now, Miss Lamont, watch out for those dentalized D's and T's and those flat A's.
Oh, everybody's picking on me.
Okay, Lena. Now look at this flower, see? The mic is in there. That's it. Now the sound will run from it, through this wire, onto the record. It'll catch whatever you say. Now let's hear how it sounds, Lena. Okay, quiet! Roll up!
Oh, Pierre, you shouldn't have come. Then, sure.
What's that noise?
The mic's picking up her heartbeat.
Swell. That's right. That should do it. Now don't forget, Lena, the mic is on your shoulder, and whatever you say goes through the wire onto the record. Now please, Lena, talk into the mic.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't make any quick jerky movements or you might disconnect it. Okay, let's go. Quiet! Quiet! Roll 'em!
Oh, Pierre, you shouldn't have come. You were flirting with David.
What's this wire doing here? It's dangerous.
So, a transition to sound. Films were widely exhibited and commercialized in 1929 and 30. And the first talkie film, Al Jolson, Jazz Singer. As I said, the birth of sound was declared by someone, filmmaker like René Clair, as the death of cinema. So there are it's actually very important to analyze sound, specifically with regards to contemporary films. But the basic concepts to analyze sounds are not very complicated. The sound is actually nowadays is potentially as expressive as its image. So you cannot say even that the visual elements are superior to sound techniques anymore, and they are now image and sound are co-expressible, I would say. So image can kind of create image and sound can create different word, and I would say that the sound can call attention to both the spatial and temporal dimensions of a scene. So there are a number of different functions that the film sound has. So we're going to talk about some major ones. The concepts that you need to learn and is actually I want you to pay attention in the movie that we're watching today is diegetic versus non-diegetic sounds. So diegetic is sound that comes from the sources within the film. So remember Casablanca, sampling piano. That's diegetic because characters in the movie do hear that. Non-diegetic is more some sort of editorial. We assume that the characters in the movie would not hear that sound, so it's just an addition, an editorial addition. So that's not known as non-diegetic. The symphonic music, for example, at the end of Titanic, Celine Dion's song is non-diegetic because we know that the orchestra is not there. There are always these things. Sometimes there's a blur. Sometimes it's difficult to say. In musicals, for instance, that you see the character is singing and the whole orchestra is supporting her. Or sometimes they just a movie becomes loud on itself to become more dramatic. So these are all examples of some sort of way that the diegetic and non-diegetic distinctions are very different. So I'm going to show some clips from the history of sort of sound films. So you see that sometimes the diegetic sounds would help non-diegetic music. So it gives the rhythm. So like a number of films in the 30s, you see, for instance, that the sound of the trains turns into the beats of the sound. So let's look at the next three clips. So the first one that I want to show is a movie was made in 1938 by Renoir, the son of Renoir, the artist. And look at how the sound starts diegetically and how it kind of the transition to the non-diegetic form. as you see, sometimes the kind of realistic sounds are as good as soundtracks, and they're helping the soundtrack to pick up. And to show you another example from a horror movie, and to see that again, the diegetic sound, they can be as useful as just the non-diegetic soundtrack. You don't always need to kind of employ non-diegetic music. It can just create that sort of, I would say, emotional kind of effect of non-diegetic sound. Non-diegetic slowly appears. So what you just watched is the importance of both sounds, and like one without the other wouldn't be that effective. So in this next clip from Baby Driver, you see that there are a number of things happening. First of all, we don't know that the music is that is coming from like the character's headphone. Should we characterize it as diegetic or non-diegetic? But look at other sounds, how rhythmic it is. Like it seems that there are instruments, as like there are like later on when he drives, all the little sounds, kind of speeding up, and like the handbrakes and everything. It seems that all of them are kind of not very realistic, and they're sort of part of the rhythm of the sound. It seems that it's been orchestrated. It seems that there's a music written for all little sounds that are coming from the car and the police cars and shotguns and everything. another scene from Baby Driver.
Sausages.
Well, I'm hungry.
Fantastic. And your choice is?
Well, I'm gonna go with the picnic show because I just love smoking pigs.
So the non-diegetic sound was like a beat for. Sorry, the diegetic sound was a beat for the non-diegetic sound here. So to show you a little more subjective, maybe, or maybe psychological look of sound mixing and sound editing, look at this scene from Dunkirk. You can pay attention to how very little sounds like heartbeats or moving sounds are captured together with the sound of the attack at the bombs. And in a very rhythmic way, each bomb is becoming louder than the previous one. Smoothly.
Out of the way! Along the wall, all the way. The ship's about to leave. Along the wall, all the way. The ship's about to leave.
I don't know if you look at the heartbeat at the very end and very little sounds after the kind of, as I said again, very rhythmic, actually the movements of the planes and the sound of the bombs. Look at this scene again. Now I want to give you an example of a very formalist approach to sound. Even non-diegetic sounds are very superficial. An example of Mickey Mousing effect that I earlier talked about. The sound has no realistic dimension in this film. So this movie is called Playtime by Jacques Tati, and all sounds are usually captured by something else, like footsteps are actually ping pong balls dropped on the floor.
Thanks.
So as I said, there are now two Oscars for sound, both sound mixing and sound editing. I just want to give you an example of sound mixing, and again, it's just how complicated, how important it is for Hollywood movies, the sound mixing techniques. So look at this short scene from Hurt Locker.
I'm coming back.
5 meters out. 5 meters, roger that.
Hey, Sanborn, you know what this place needs?
I'm listening.
Needs grass.
We're gonna start our grass business?
That's right, man. I'm gonna sell the grass, and you're gonna cut it. It's gonna be called Sanborn and Sons. We'll be rich.
I like that. Crabgrass, St. Augustine, man. I'm a scholar on this shit. How about this? You sell it, I fertilize it.
25.
25 meters, roger that.
Sanborn! Butcher shop, 2 o'clock, dude on the phone!
Why is Eldridge running?
Make him put it down!
Put down the phone!
Come on, guys, talk to me.
Drop the phone! Drop your phone!
Hey, burn them, Eldridge! Burn them!
Put down the cell phone!
Burn them! Get out of the way!
Drop your phone!
Make him put it down! Go get it! Burn them, Eldridge!
I can't get a shot!
So we have four kinds of sounds on a screen and off screen. It's different than diegetic and non-diegetic, and simultaneous and non-simultaneous. Sometimes the sound, ironically, doesn't match with the action. If you've seen the movie Doctor Strangelove, at the end, with the destruction of the world by nuclear missiles, we hear nice jazz music. Music and the scene, the action in the scene, do not really correspond, and by that, the director creates a sense of irony. So the movie also, the sound can be internal or external or both. It just starts from the external and turns into the internal thoughts of the characters. So I want just to talk a little bit about symphonic music, soundtracks. They create moods. So, for instance, a horror, a sense of sadness, sentimentality is very important. So a movie like Schindler's List, you cannot really imagine that movie without its soundtrack, and it actually was a very effective thing that they actually were performing it on the set. So I wanted to show you two scenes to talk about the use of soundtracks and how it just adds another layers of emotion. So the first one that I want to show is a scene from The Social Network. And just first of all, look, try to kind of identify when the soundtrack starts. Slowly, when they have a dialogue, we kind of it's even very difficult to detect because you're kind of involved with what is happening on the screen to detect where it starts. But you know at the end of the scene, it's there. And the idea of kind of the sort of network quality of the soundtrack is also very sort of interesting. So pay attention when it starts and how when the action ends or the dialogue ends is how it's the only thing in the image.
Are you still wired in? Security. You issued 24 million new shares of stock.
You were told that if new investors
How
came
much
along...
were your shares diluted? How much were his?
What was Mr. Zuckerberg's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
What was Mr. Moskowitz's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
What was Sean Parker's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
What was Peter Thiel's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
And what was your ownership share diluted down to?
0.03%. You signed the papers. You set me up. You're gonna blame me because you were the business head of the company and you made a bad business deal with your own company?
It's gonna be like I'm not a part of Facebook.
It won't be like you're not a part of Facebook. You're not a part of Facebook.
My name's on the masthead.
You might want to check again.
It's because I froze the account?
You think we were gonna let you parade around in your ridiculous suits pretending you were running this company?
Sorry! My Prada's at the cleaners! Along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag!
Security's here. You'll be leaving now?
I'm not signing those papers.
We will get the signature.
Tell me this isn't about me getting into the Phoenix. You did it. I knew you did it. You planted that story about the chicken.
I didn't plant the story about the chicken.
What's he talking
You
about?
had me accused of animal cruelty.
Seriously, what the hell's the chicken?
And I'll bet what you hated the most is that they identified me as a co-founder of Facebook, which I am. You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
Get him out of here.
It's okay, I'm going.
Hang on. Almost forgot. Here's your $19,000. I wouldn't cash it, though. I drew it on the account you froze.
I like sitting next to you, Sean. Makes me look so tough.
So the last clip that I want to show is from the movie The Hours, and I want to talk about the kind of how important music is in creating a sense of sentimentality. So in this scene, again, look at there's a fight, and kind of slowly again, it's hard to detect when it starts. It doesn't matter in the beginning, but again at the end, the music is the most important closure of the scene, and it's about suicide, but it creates this kind of sentimental feelings.
Are they here?
Who?
The voices?
Oh, the voices are always here.
And it's the voices that you're hearing now, isn't it?
No. Mrs. Dalloway, it's you. I've stayed alive for you. But now you have to let me go.
Richard?
No, wait. me a story.
What about?
Tell me a story from your day.
I got up
Yes.
and I went out and went to buy flowers. Like Mrs. Dalloway in the book, you know?
Yes.
And it was a beautiful morning.
Was it?
Yes, it was so beautiful. It was so fresh.
Oh, fresh, was it?
Yes.
Like a morning on the beach?
Yes.
Like that?
Yes.
Like that morning when you walked out of that old house and you were 18 and maybe I was 19.
Yes.
I was 19 years old and I'd never seen anything so beautiful. You, coming out of a glass door in the early morning, still sleepy. Isn't it strange? Most ordinary morning in anybody's life. I'm afraid I can't make it to the party, Clarissa.
The party. Doesn't matter.
You've been so good to me, Mrs. Dalloway. I love you. I don't think two people could have been happier than we've been.